Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. I hope you're doing well. It's good to be with you. We are looking at a topic that comes up often in podcasting around your show notes. Now, whatever you're listening to on right now, your phone or your computer or tablet or wherever you are, if you're on YouTube or if you are on a podcast player like Spotify or Apple or iHeartRadio or Amazon, wherever you are, as you look at your device in your hand or in front of you, there's going to be a way for you to read the notes that go along with this podcast. Those are called podcast show notes. Oh, hi, I'm Dave, by the way. Those are podcast show notes, and those show notes are what travels with the episode into the world. That's one way of doing your notes. That's one way of capturing the content information in Word format that goes along with a nice partner of the audio and the video, whatever you're doing, however you're consuming. There's another way of doing show notes, which you're going to talk about, and I'm going to compare the two and put it in front of you and say, you make the best decision for your podcast. And I'll tell you what I'm doing and maybe offer some suggestions, but really this is ultimately up to you and how you do your show notes. So we're going to talk about show notes and all the information that goes along with your episode and a couple tips as well on how you can make it better here in the How to Podcast series. But first, I want to share something about our meetup group from two of the people that attend our group. And they're great contributors, and they created this about our meetup group. I want to talk more about our meetup before we get into our topic for today. Dave Beckmeyer in California, Bill Monty in Florida, they are active members of our meetup group, and we meet twice a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays. We've been doing this now into our fourth year, and it's been really great. We've had some amazing people come through. Some people have come into podcasting and now have left podcasting. We're sad. Some people have come and stayed, which is great. And we get together on a regular basis to talk podcasting. I'm a firm believer that nobody should ever podcast alone. You should always podcast within a community. And that's what we have here. It's totally free. It doesn't cost you a penny. It costs me $50 a month. It doesn't cost you anything. But we get together and we talk podcasting and we support each other. And we're here for each other in the good times and the bad times. We're here, right? And it's nice to have a group of people who just understand what a podcast is and all the work that goes into it. Because your family, your wife, your husband, your partner, they don't really understand what's going on. They're just like, you're going to go do that podcast thing again? Yeah, we're going to go do the podcast thing again. And to have a community of people who get what we're doing and understand and support us and also are on their own journey as a podcaster, it's really good. So Dave and Bill worked on this little piece you're going to hear in a second, and they created this on their own. I had no input on this at all. So this is completely what they came up with together, which is another sign of a good community when your people in the community are willing to do this on their own. It's amazing. So if you want to meet two of the nicest people in podcasting, Dave Beckmeyer in California, Bill Monty in Florida, and you're like, these two guys sound awesome. Well, then come to our meetup. You can actually meet them virtually through our meetup group. They'd love to talk to you and support you as well. So here are two outstanding members of our group talking about our podcast meetup. Here's Dave and Bill. Guys, take it away.
This episode got me thinking about something I've been doing almost every Saturday for the last several years now. Regarding real change taking longer than a weekend, I wanted to mention a podcast meetup run by a friend of the show, David Campbell. Rather than have Dave do a promo about it himself, I spoke with a fellow member of the group, Bill Monty.
I was so lucky to just stumble upon Dave's meetings. The first meeting, I knew this was different than other groups I had belonged to. First off, the other groups I had to pay to be in. And sometimes I was completely ignored, never asked a question or even acknowledged that I was part of a little 5-person group. And so this became something very different for me. And really it was someone tossing me a lifeline, because at that point I was just thinking about giving up podcasting. Dave uses the word community a lot, and that's exactly what we've built. We've built this little podcasting community of people who actually care for each other. There's no judgment. There's no sales. It's a great place to learn, and it's a great place to feel safe.
If you're looking for a podcast community that feels more like a long-term conversation than a weekend transformation, the easiest way to join is visit Dave's site, howtopodcast.ca, and scroll down to the meetup. It's free, and honestly, it's one of the few podcast groups I keep coming back to.
There you go. So that's Dave and Bill. Again, two great guys in our meetup group. Thrilled to have them along with us on the journey of podcasting. They both have great podcasts as well. Come check them out. These guys are great, and we'd love to have you there. The room is there for you. It's always there. No pressure, but oh my gosh, it would be so much better if you were there. So keep us in mind. If you're looking for community, come join us. howtopodcast.ca. So as I said in the intro, there's a couple different ways to put the words alongside of the content in podcasting. For me personally, the way as a listener, not as a podcaster, as a listener, when I have my phone with me, I usually listen to podcasts at work. I work a night shift overnights, and I get about 40 hours a week of listening time. So I'm always looking for a new podcast. Hit me up if you got a show, I want to listen. And so I get to listen to a lot of podcasts. My phone primarily is not in my hand. My boss would not be a big fan of that. I have a job to do, but I can have one earbud in and do my thing, and it's fine. But standing there staring at my phone, watching a video podcast or reading all of the stuff on your website or in the show notes, I don't have time to do that. I find a podcast I love and I just listen. I'm always listening. I don't watch a video podcast at work. Again, HR, not a big fan. So for me, that's how I approach my podcast. So right there, you've kind of seen a little bit of my default and my bias there as a listener. As a listener, I'm not reading your show notes for the most part, unless there's a link to a book, a website, a free download, a tool, something that I need that you talked about in the show. I might pause, or at break time, I might go back and go to that website. That's how I listen to podcasts. And again, I listen to 40 hours a week, so that's a lot of listening time. So I'm not the normal podcast listener who listens to maybe one or two shows a week. I'm listening to multiple and binge listening as well, going way back in your archive. So I'm a very different listener than probably your normal listener of your podcast. So that's as a listener, okay? I'm curious, before we move any further, your approach as a listener, not a podcaster. I know it's a little bit tainted because we're all podcasters, but as a listener of a podcast or a watcher of a podcast, when you watch a podcast, are you reading the information in the show notes? Yes or no? Like on a consistent basis. I know maybe here and there you might, but every episode, every time, consistently, 75 to 90% of the time, you either read them or you don't. Where do you land on that? Because that's going to help shape our conversation today as far as the importance of what we're going to be talking about. Now, if you're the type of person who reads everything that every podcast episode produces, then yeah, you're going to skew a little bit more to the written side of podcasting. And if you're like me and your phone is in your pocket, you're not even looking at the screen. So you're not as interested in that from a listener viewer perspective. So let's just keep that in mind. It's something to think about. It's something that kind of shapes our conversation today. So in broad general terms, big paintbrush painting a wide canvas here. You have basically two ways of doing your show notes. You have what travels with the episode on a device, like what you're looking at right now. If you have your phone, if you have an opportunity to do so, look at what's attached to this episode. That's my show notes. Those are the words that you're going to read as you listen to the show. That's my show notes. The show notes will go with you on the phone. They're the same show notes that I put on YouTube. I might expand it on YouTube because I have more characters available on YouTube than I do on most apps for a listening app. So I might tweak it a little bit there specifically for YouTube, but for the most part, I am using this as far as the words go with the podcast and travel with the show on your phone. My website is primarily just a connection point. There's some stuff there, but I don't have episode-specific information for every episode. I'm using my own website that I built on Canva, hosted through GoDaddy, and it costs me, apart from my Canva subscription that I already pay for podcasting, it's kind of built into that cost every year. I have the paid plan. My hosting on GoDaddy is $15 to $20 a year for my website domain, howtopodcast.ca. So right there, that's my cost, basically, using some of my Canva credits and my subscription there. My Canva website, it's all built there for How to Podcast. If you want to see what a Canva website can look like, it's a very basic one. I'll give you that, but it's built on Canva. So there's an option for you if you're trying to figure out your website. So I don't have episode specific information on my podcast. I have general information for the show and contact information, buy me a coffee, the meetups we talked about earlier, those kind of things are there on my website. But I don't have episode by episode by episode specific information on my website that goes along with the episode. That's my personal choice. So here's where the divide is. You can create information that travels with the episode on your device, and then you could also create on your website a dedicated page for every single episode of your show. And that would go out as a separate page. So let's say, for example, you can't do this on my podcast website, but if you had howtopodcast.ca/764, this is episode 764, you could have a dedicated page for the episode. And on that dedicated page /764 at the end of howtopodcast.ca, you could have like a whole blog. You could have more information and charts and visuals and all kinds of stuff. You can go nuts on your website page. I've chosen not to do that. And I've chosen more to focus on what's on my phone or what's on my screen than a dedicated website that's in addition to the podcast. That's my choice. So here's where we have this decision to make. Am I going to go with what's on my phone and what's available with the podcast? Or am I going to do additional work and leverage SEO through a website? You have a choice to make here, and you need to make the choice that works best for you. So I'm leaning more towards what's on my phone, and you might be the opposite of me. That's great. That's why this episode's out there. There's basically two different audiences we're trying to reach when we have this conversation about show notes on your phone or your device and a dedicated website with a page for every episode. We're either trying to reach humans who are deciding whether to listen, or we're looking to reach search engines that are deciding whether to rank your content. Those goals, they overlap, but they are not identical. So that first one, option one, show notes inside the podcast episode. Many podcast hosting platforms allow for rich show notes directly inside the episodes. Apps like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Overcast, Podcast Addict, Fountain, True Fans, all of these offer your notes displayed within the episode. Some advantages to this. Better listener experience. A listener never needs to leave the app, which is a good thing. They can read along while listening, click links, find resources, and follow timestamps if you include them. There's higher engagement, I find, within the phone as well, within your device. People often decide within the first few minutes whether they're going to continue listening. Good in-app show notes reinforce why they should stay. And every listening app has benefits. Even your website disappears tomorrow, the episode still carries useful information into the future because of how it's delivered. And there's less maintenance. You only have to write it once as your show notes, and you're done. But there are some disadvantages as well. There's limited SEO value when all of your words are only in the episode on the device. Most podcast apps are not indexed like web pages. Google may understand some podcast metadata and transcripts, but your in-app show notes generally don't function like a fully indexed website available through the internet. There's limited formatting as a disadvantage as well. Most podcast apps strip away all the formatting, the beautiful bold headings and paragraphs and points and subpoints. They just make it one massive batch of words, one big blob of characters. In some cases, apps don't have images that go along with what you're doing, no embeddable videos. There's limited internal linking, limited structure headings, the things that websites do well. Your podcast app does not do as well. And they're difficult to update. Some podcast hosts cache their feeds, meaning they have an initial push of your episode out, and then that's it. They don't come back for updates. They just use the original one they pulled 2 years ago, and then they ignore any new updates. And some podcast apps refresh at different intervals. So one update to your show notes doesn't translate to every app all the time at the same time. Change may take several days to appear. So the second option then, if you want to get away from the information on your phone and you want to do something a little bit more robust, is to have dedicated episode pages on your website, which we've talked about before. So a place like Podpage does this really well, where you can actually have a dedicated page per episode. And you'll hear people talk about this as a winning scheme or a winning plan for your show. I do agree that having a separate page for every episode is a great idea. Pause for a second and think about this show, for example. 365 episodes in a row just this year is going to bloat my website quite heavily when there's a dedicated page for every single episode every day in the year 2026. It's a little bit more than the normal once a week or once every 2 week cadence that most podcasters would agree to. So my website would just be getting bigger and bigger and bigger if every single episode had its own dedicated page. So as a outsider looking in, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want that. So, but a dedicated page with episode notes where you have the name of your website.com/ and then the episode number, 764. That'd be the website address. And then that would give you so much that you could do with that space. And that's where the search engines are coming, right? Let's go back to the beginning. Are you trying to reach humans? Is that your goal? Or are you trying to reach search engines? There's the difference. You can't do both at the same time very, very well. So you need to think about what's your priority, especially as with limited resources and limited time. Where's your best investment? So think about that. When you have a dedicated episode page on your website, then you can have articles, full transcripts. You can embed a player. You can have links and images and resources, internal links and related episodes. Essentially, it's a blog post about the episode. That's basically what it is. So the advantages then to having these on your website. So I can't see this directly on my phone while I'm listening, but I can go to your website while I'm listening, and then experience your web page, right? The advantage is you get much better SEO. Those pages are built for search. They're built for people finding you through search. Google understands websites way better than it does an RSS feed and what's happening on your phone. A dedicated page can help you rank for long tail searches. So you have a evergreen component to your content. It can help when answering questions. It can help with guest names and finding guests through search. Products discussed, locations, tools, quotes, problems solved. The page becomes an SEO asset that can continue attracting visitors years into the future. It gives you rich internal linking as well. When you can link to previous episodes within your website, you can link to related articles and products, newsletters, services, categories that can strengthen your entire website. And there's unlimited word count. If you want to have like 4,000 characters for a blog post about your episode, no problem. Compared to the apps, you're going to have a limited amount of characters on Spotify or YouTube. If you want images, great. You can add them. You can have frequently asked questions, which search engines love. Perfect. You put them in. You need downloadable resources. It's right there on your website. It's great. And it builds authority on the internet for you and your brand by people going to your website. Awesome. Better analytics. You can monitor your search traffic. You own the conversation on your own website. You have better time on page. That's a metric that search engines love. When people come to your website and they stay, they don't bounce right away. You have better click-throughs. You can see where people are clicking on your website. Conversions can happen. Newsletter signups. A community could be hosted on your website. There's a lot of great stuff there. But there are some disadvantages as well. Disadvantages of having a separate episode page for each episode on your website and very basic show notes on your phone, on your device. It takes a lot more work to do this. It does. Every episode becomes another website to maintain. It also, hosting costs increase. Podpage is not free. And as you move up the tiers, it gets more and more and more expensive on top of your hosting site, on top of your editing costs, on top of your microphone and your website domain payment for the year. This is an additional external extra cost, and it can get pricey after a while, depending on what level you decide to go with Podpage, for example. Some podcast website builders limit the number of episode pages. So when you hit their limit, then what happens? You lose all of your past episodes, or your new episodes don't show up. There is a hard ceiling in some places to the amount of website pages you can actually have. Going back to my show, this show, 365 episodes in a row. I'm going to burn through any limits pretty quickly with this podcast. I'm hosted on Captivate.fm for a few of my shows, and they have a limit to this. Buzzsprout has a built-in sites, but it's intentionally simple. And Spotify for podcasters offers almost no website SEO at all. So you need to make a choice. What does Google prefer? What does the internet prefer in search? Not surprisingly, Google prefers websites. That's really what it's all about. It has decades of experiences crawling the internet. RSS feeds were designed for syndication, not really for search. That doesn't mean that RSS descriptions are ignored, but podcasts on YouTube Music and everywhere else, Google's podcast indexing has shown that Google can understand podcast metadata, but a podcast is not a website. And Google understands website. Think of it this way. RSS metadata is like a business card, and a website is a magazine article. That's the difference. What about YouTube in all of this? YouTube, this is where things really kind of get interesting, because YouTube indexes titles, descriptions, captions, transcripts, chapters, comments, engagements. That combination gives YouTube some more enormous context. Podcast apps generally do not provide that level of searchable information, so podcast show notes inside an RSS feed are not equivalent to a YouTube description plus a transcript. YouTube is a different game, so if you think you can just copy-paste from one to the other and back and forth and it's going to get the same results, you're not. YouTube is built differently, so keep that in mind. What about this whole world of AI search? Now, this is actually just going to change the conversation significantly. Large language models, your Perplexities, your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, all these things. They pull information from web pages, transcripts, structured headings, frequently asked questions, FAQs, clearly organized content. A robust episode website page gives AI much more information to understand, and that's becoming increasingly more valuable. That might steer your direction as a podcaster. So what's the best practice? I think the best practice is to use both. Depending on your availability and how much money you have, use both. If time allows, this is the ideal workflow that I would suggest to somebody. Inside your podcast episode, 250 to 600 word summary. That's a good range. That's going to show up on most players with that constraint. You want to include your guest bio, any links mentioned. In some places, they're going to be hyperlinks, which means they have to have the HTTPS : blah, 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 not just howtopodcast.ca. I need to have the full website address in some players. Just keep that in mind. Any resources mentioned, keep track when you're doing your interviews, when you're doing your episodes as a solo podcaster, a little notepad beside you to remind you to put that information in the show notes. When you say, look in the show notes, you'll find it. Make sure it's there. And any calls to action. Website, newsletter, buy me a coffee, make sure that's there as well. That's within the episode itself, what you see on your phone right now as you listen or watch this. On a website page, you're going to want 1,000 to 2,500 word article about what you talked about. This is totally different. You could have an embeddable player so people can listen to your podcast in the episode on your website as well. A transcript, headings, images, frequently asked questions, internal links, and related episodes. This is where you own the conversation on your website. That's the second part to this. This two-part approach is going to serve two different purposes without duplicating each other exactly. You're reaching the humans and you're reaching the computers with this approach. So based on experience level, I have 3 suggestions. One for the non-technical beginner, one for the experienced podcaster, and one for the advanced podcaster with really strong SEO skills. When we talk about this decision between focusing on what's on your device and focusing on what's on your website. Here are 3 different level approaches. You've put yourself where you find yourself to be, and then use this as a guide. If you're new to podcasting, don't do the expert level right away. Don't do it. Start here. For a non-technical beginner podcaster, keep it simple. Write solid show notes inside every episode. Use your podcast host website. If that's all you have, most hosting sites will give you a free website. If that's all you have time for, then just use that. You're good. Share that link. If you have a simple website, create one page that highlights your latest episodes rather than trying to build hundreds of pages. And spend your time making better episodes rather than chasing the SEO. Priority is to publish consistently. That's for you. If you're new to podcasting, that's where you start. And if you're an experienced podcaster, let's step it up one level. As an experienced podcaster, I'm going to give you more to do. In addition to what we just said, also start by creating dedicated episode pages for your best content. Not every content, but your best content. Not every episode needs a 2,000-word article, but focus on episodes that are evergreen, highly searched, frequently shared, best comments, best feedback on that episode. Use that as your starting point. Interview-based shows, for example, maybe they do better than your solo episodes for search or results. Then you highlight those. Anything instructional, focus on those. Those pages become long-term traffic generators for you, and you don't have to do every episode. Just the key ones. Also improve on your in-app show notes so listeners have a better experience. The priority here is to build a searchable content library for the experienced podcasters. That's probably where most of us listening to this will be. That's where you need to go. Now, if you're an advanced podcaster with really strong SEO skills, I'm going to ask you to go to the extreme here. You got a little bit more homework to do than everyone else, and it's going to cost you more money. But here's where you can go. If you're a beginner, and if you're middle experienced, you can end up here, and this is where you really get to play. As an advanced podcaster with really strong search engine optimization skills, treat every significant episode as a content hub. Again, it doesn't have to be every single episode, but every significant episode. Each episode should include optimized titles, compelling meta descriptions, structured headings, comprehensive articles, embeddable players, full transcript, FAQ section, frequently asked questions, a schema markup. And again, if you don't know what that is, then you're not strong in SEO skills. So skip that. Internal links, related episodes, outbound authority links with, where appropriate, newsletter signups, clear actions for your audience to do as a call to action, and use the RSS show notes as a concise companion, but not a replacement to the website. Think of your podcast as one content format within a larger publishing strategy, where the website becomes the authoritative source and the podcast drives engagement. They both have a different job to do. My overall recommendation as we wrap up, when we talk about this decision about do I make my show notes for people or do I make my show notes for the computer or both? Here's what I think. As a podcaster, I'm going to default to my ongoing statement and quote that I love. Do as you can with what you have where you are. That's the underlying statement for all of us. You need to do what you can. Don't overwhelm yourself with this. But if I was advising podcasters today, if we were working together, I would encourage you to stop thinking of your show and the show notes as a simple episode description and start thinking it as a content ecosystem for your podcast. Your podcast app should answer, should I listen? And your episode webpage should answer, everything you need to know about this topic is right here. You have the ability to go deeper on your website than you can in any of your show notes on an app. That approach, I think, really going to serve listeners, search engines, and increasingly AI-powered search tools. It also protects your content. If a podcast app just changes in the future or its interface disappears, your website remains as the permanent home of your work. You are in control of the presentation, the discoverability, and the long-term value of every episode. You own the conversation. So make your decision. First of all, where are you? Are you a beginner podcast, a middle experienced podcaster, or an advanced podcaster? That's one setting you need to establish. And then decide, am I focusing on humans? Am I focusing on computers? Or do I want to blend of both? And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I would love to walk through with you. We can look at your website. We can look at your show notes together, come up with some ideas. I have some prompts that I use for my AI tools where I take my transcripts and I convert them into readable show notes. And I can share all this with you at howtopodcast.ca. You can grab a virtual coffee with me. We'll jump on Zoom together and I'll do a screen share and I'll walk you through everything that I'm doing. And I'd love to learn from you as well. howtopodcast.ca. Thanks for being here. Go make a decision and go create better show notes. Don't sleep on this. You're missing great opportunities if you don't make this a priority. So if you need help, let me know. Thanks for being here. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening to the entirety of the episode, including this part. You know what? A lot of people leave right now. So we'll let them leave. Give them a second to go. Okay, now it's just you and me. We have our meetups that we do for the How to Podcast series. We do them during the week, and we also do them on Saturdays. So twice a week, you have the opportunity to meet other podcasters, just like you. Some people have just started. Some people haven't even released an episode yet. Some have been doing it forever. And we get together and talk podcasting. We want to help you in community to continue with your show, to start your show, to grow your show. So come and meet listeners of this show in one space on meetup.com. Again, through howtopodcast.ca, you'll see the links. It's completely free to join. Come whenever you have an opportunity to come. There's no commitment. You don't have to sign any waivers. You can just come join us. Come join the conversation. We'd love to have you there because the only thing that's going to make these meetups better is you being there. So I'm hoping you will say yes. And you'll say, Dave, I'm tired of podcasting by myself. I wish there were people I could connect with that are fellow podcasters and share my frustrations with guests who ghost me and my editing software is crapping out on me and I'm just having this hard time. I'm just having a hard time coming up with podcasts, episodes and titles and all the things and social media. And wouldn't it be great to get in a room with other podcasters and share best practices and learn? 3 of our 4 Saturdays every month are themed. So you have a topic, but that last Saturday of every month is open question and answer. Ask anything. Come meet a podcaster. Come enjoy the podcasting community through howtopodcast.ca. Come to our meetups. Can't wait to see you there. You're still here. Awesome. Okay, so I had a question from a new podcaster, and they were saying, Dave, how can I produce high-quality weekly episodes if I only have like 5 hours a week to work on my podcast? What do I do? Yeah, that's actually where the majority of podcasters are, by the way. Most podcasters don't have a team of 20 spend 80 hours a week on their podcast. And, that's not reality. That's what you see online, but that's not true for the majority of us. For most of us, we are doing this in the margins of life. So 5 hours, that can be a lot of time, actually, to work on your show if you look at it from that perspective. So my suggestions for them while we were talking through their particular show was that we need to look at time blocking in your calendar to create that space, to solidify that 5 hours or add to that 5 hours, make it 6 or 7 hours. But we have to say no to something. So for me, I'm saying no to binge to TV watching. I don't do that anymore. I'm more focused on my podcast than mindlessly sitting there watching a television screen. My mind's like, you could be doing something better than this. It's fun to relax. It's nice to unwind and, shut everything off and just be entertained. Great. But I don't do it every day, all the time, as I used to do. So for me, that's how I created more time in my week. So time blocking is important. Outsourcing, if there's elements of your creation of your podcast that you can give to somebody else, that's also going to give you back time. And that 5 hours will work better for you if you're not doing some of the menial tasks, like creating your artwork, connecting with guests, promoting your show, building your website, whatever, right? If you need any help with that stuff, that's what I do outside of podcasting. I love helping. So reach out to me. Outsourcing will give you back time. And then moving away from making your podcast perfect. Like when you over edit your show and you remove every single and ah, when you want the pristine audio that your podcast doesn't require. Your audience just requires it to be listenable. It doesn't require it to be something that's going to be submitted to a podcast hall of fame or anything like that. This is just simple. Get it done. Get it out the door. Do your best. Do what you can with what you have where you are, my favorite thing, and move forward. Your 5 hours you might find is actually going to be 2.5 hours when you start letting go of perfectionism. So those are the 3 things that I'm having them work on: time blocking, outsourcing, and moving away from being perfect. That's going to help you to make the best of that 5 hours if that's all you have. And maybe do less episodes. You don't have to do a weekly episode, and they don't have to be an hour each. They can be 10, 15 minutes, and they can be once a month, twice a month. It's up to you. And as our friends over the pond would say, fortnightly, which is actually a video game. But anyways, whatever you got, use what you have. And if you need help, reach out to me. Love to chat. Podcast.ca. Don't podcast alone. See you soon.